Module 4, creating a solid model of this table, part 2. In our first video, we created the geometry for the parts of the table. And so here we have those. We just created a cylinder and extruded that, and then we created a profile shape and we re-evolved that after we created a region from it. And then same with this area, we just created this shape as a boundary, closed boundary shape, and then we extruded it. When we assemble this, we're going to want to make sure that we have certain components active. I like to use O-snaps, and so as we look at our O-snap table here, snap and grid can be on or off. As we get better with it, we'll use snap and grid a lot less. Polar we'll want on. Object snap we want enabled, as well as object snap tracking. 3D snap we want enabled. I'm just going to take the defaults that are listed here, and that's basically it. I'm going to say OK to that, and then I'm going to use some 3D rotate commands to move this into place. And so I'm going to type in 3D. This one's slightly different. If we use this rotate gizmo, it does work, but I prefer the 3D rotate command better. And then I guess we could use this one just the same. See, with the polar tracking, we can just track that straight up, click, and hit escape, and that's what we want. We want to make sure that we keep these lines straight and perpendicular, because if it gets a little bit off, then everything gets a little bit off and it just doesn't work as well as you'd like it to. We'll do the same thing for this one. We'll 3D rotate it. I'm going to put on a toolbar. For modeling, and I can get my 3D rotate command off of that. I'll just dock that under my properties toolbar. So here's 3D rotate. If you hover long enough, it'll give you an explanation for it. Click on that, select our object to rotate, and I like the ability to just put the gizmo wherever I want, so I'll put it right there. And then pick a rotation axis. I'll pick this red axis, which is the x-axis. I'll drive this up. As you can see, it's polar tracking at 90. If you have trouble with that, you can always turn on ortho, and then it'll just move in 90-degree increments. And that's exactly what we want to do. So we'll hit enter, and then I'm not sure, I guess I must have, there we go, click. And so as we put this together, shift middle mouse wheel, what we want to do is we want to be able to attach this to here, and what we're going to have to do is attach it to the quadrant, and then I'm going to have to push it in a little bit because we'll have a gap. And so let's do that. So what we'll do is we'll move, we'll just use a regular move command from point, shift right mouse click, midpoint right here, to point, shift right mouse click, quadrant. There it is. And so you can see that it's got a little bit of a gap around that, and so we want to clean that up a little bit. We can use a 3D move for that, and so we'll get the 3D move command, and I think it'll stay in the right plane, and then we'll put that gizmo right, you can put it right at the midpoint if you really want to see it, or at the quadrant. And then as we move it, and that kind of backfired on me, let's try that again. Just put it here, and then as we move it, let's see, no, try it one more time. We'll just grab the red axis and push it. I might have to turn off my O-snap. Yeah. And so we can track that in, and we'll just go 1/4 of an inch. If I was going to make this for real, I might even go even more, but I don't want to get too far off of the model. Models don't have to be exactly perfect. As we look at it, when I brought that in, it kind of offset that. And so let's undo that and just bring it in a little less than that. .0625. Yeah, 1/16 of an inch was enough. And then we can array that in a top view. And so I'll array that before I put the tabletop on it. And so we'll switch over to a top view, and then we'll use the array command. And these are just 2D commands in the XY plane. You can do these in 3D, but I find as I teach these courses, we want to keep them really simple. And so we'll go to the polar array, we'll select the leg, we'll make this our center, and then we'll make 3 objects. And let me do that again. There we go. It'll place those 120 degrees apart. We can green check mark that. If it's associative, that means you can come back and edit these values, and so you don't have to go and do the design work. It'll just be more intelligent. So we'll leave the associativity on there, and then we'll grab our isometric view again. There we are. We can clean this up. We don't need to see that. And then what we'll do is we'll put the table on the top. I'll use a wireframe to do that, and I'll just use a move command where I'll select the object, hit enter, acquire the bottom center point. You can kind of see it track to the top one there, left a little witness mark, and we'll bring that then here to, it's fighting me because I think ortho's on, yeah, to here. There we go. And then we can take a look at this with a conceptual visual style. This looks fine. You're welcome to add any details and accoutrements that you'd like. Now everything can kind of come apart to a certain extent. Since this was arrayed with associativity, it doesn't, but it would still come separate from the center column of the table. And so what we want to do is we want to union that together. And so what we would do is we would say union, and then we would just put a box around these and hit enter. And now when we hover over these, you'll see that they're attached. Now it didn't attach the legs to it. I'm not sure why. Maybe they don't have enough engagement because I put them in there 1/16 of an inch. So we'll just live with that for right now. We'll go to the floor plan viewport, activate the viewport, view, zoom, all, view, 3D view, southeast isometric, view, visual style, conceptual. You could try some of the other visual styles. I think we'll just leave it with conceptual. Lock in the viewport. Let's see what kind of a scale we can put into that. It's a little too small. And when you have isometrics, you really don't need a scale, but you still kind of want to be able to be somewhat consistent with those different scaling. As you can see why I took CAD, because my math could use a little improvement. I used the computer to solve these problems. Alrighty, so we locked in a scale of 1.5 inches equals a foot with the blue lock, and then update the title block in the detail view, and this completes how to model the table.